Welcome to the Rex Andrews Show. Glad to have you here today. For those who are returning, I appreciate your support. Love to have you back in the saddle with us. For those who are new for the first time, welcome. Glad to have you. Glad you found us. The show is distributed worldwide on over 23 different podcast applications, or you could always find us on our website at Rex Andrews Show. Now, I want to take a shout out to our sponsor, Wealth Management Group. Fantastic folks. They'll help you meet your financial goals. They don't just sell products. They look at your needs, your goals, and then they find the right vehicles to help you get there. Their website is wealthmanagement.estate. That's wealthmanagement.estate. Okay, let's get into it today. Got a funny story. Got some exciting interviews coming up this week, and I think you'll really like the two interviews that we're going to do this week. But in the meantime, I am going to talk to you about a funny story. Well, this one's not funny. From the days that we were driving rideshare to investigate building a mobile application to compete with Uber and Lyft. Now, this was back in the early days of Uber and Lyft, and it was before Lyft, I believe. And my partner and I decided that we'd go out and do some driving. So we drove for Uber and then even taxi because we wanted to look at their technologies and be able to knock them off. So if you're going to build something, you need to understand how it works and what your competition does strong and what they do weak. And so that was it. Well, in a couple other episodes, I've shared from what I call driving you crazies because they frequently were crazy people. You know, they always talked about the crazy Uber driver, the crazy taxi driver. No, it's the crazy public. So this is one, it was rather shattering, and I will remember it forever. You know how the old saying goes, you can't unsee something? Well, I couldn't unsee this, and I'll share it with you. So it was a weekend night. I don't remember if it was a Friday or Saturday, but that's irrelevant. It was a weekend night, and I was out driving and got a ding. Now, this is when I had a cab and was driving a van. And I was out driving and got a ding on the app and was supposed to go pick up a person at its apartment complex. Well, it wasn't the best part of town. Let's just leave it at that. And so I went over there and pulled up. And of course, you know, a cab's a very identifiable vehicle. It's not just like an Uber where you're coming in someone's regular car of any variety. No, a cab is all lit up with the thing on the top, and you've got all the lettering on the sides. They're white, so you can see them for a mile. Well, anyway, I pull up into this parking lot, and the person doesn't come out. So it was actually a woman that was on the app. So I pick up the phone and call them, and the woman says, well, he'll be right out. And I'm like, he'll? It's supposed to be you. Well, apparently she had ordered it for her friend, boyfriend, associate, whatever. That didn't matter. All I could care about is let's get this ride done and let's get out of here. So I sat there for almost 30 minutes. Now, in that business, you basically run the clock because it's an opportunity cost. If I'm sitting there, unlike an Uber or Lyft, they have a time limit that they say you have to come. And if you don't, well, then you get paid. Well, with a cab, you drop the meter the minute you pull into the parking lot and have actually talked to the person. It was about a half hour and several phone calls before the guy finally comes out. And he gets in the cab, and I don't know, it seemed like he was on something. He wasn't 100% lucid. But anyway, I got the address, and we roll out of this parking lot. And I tell you, it was a seedy place. It was a 3-level building, and there were people kind of hanging out all over the place. It kind of reminded me of like Mardi Gras down in Louisiana. But anyway, where people are hanging out on the balconies and kind of partying and stuff. Well, that's what it looked like. So we start driving, and the destination wasn't that far. It was in an area maybe 3-4 miles from the apartment building that I picked him up at. And we drive into this place, and now this place was on a fairly busy street. It wasn't a typical neighborhood where it was down, into a neighborhood. It was on a fairly busy street. It wasn't on the main thoroughfare, but it was on a turn street going perpendicular. So I pull up, and they're at the side of the road, just before the apartment complex that he wanted. There was a car parked, and there was a young man in a white t-shirt and blue shorts and tennis shoes. And it was the summertime, and he was leaning into a car. So he was talking to somebody into a car. I didn't pay much attention to it, but I just figured, what the heck, took a quick glance. As a son of a cop, I was always trained to be aware of your surroundings. And so, I'd kind of looked at it, and I, registered for once. So I pull up there, and the gentleman decided he was going to pay me with cash. So we rolled the sliding door open, and he was going to decide to pay me with cash. Well, he was taking forever to try to get his money out of his pocket. And I had been out for several hours, so I was, needed to stretch my legs. So I walk around the van and sort of meet him while he's counting his money. And I don't know where he had kept his money, but this stuff was all crinkled up, and he was flattening bills out, and it was nuts. It was absolutely nuts. And so I'm standing there, and he finally gets the money. He steps out of the van, and I'm standing there counting it. And all of a sudden, there were three gunshots that rang out. And I looked over my shoulder, turned my head to the right, and the young man that had been leaning in the car was now shot and laying on the ground. Well, I didn't know what the situation was, so I dove into the van, because to take cover. We've got gunshots going out. You don't know if it's the last of the gunshots. So I dove into the van, and at that time, the patron had stepped out, and he was headed in towards the apartment. Well, he didn't take cover. I guess this was a normal, everyday occurrence, but he didn't take cover. So I sat there in the floor of the van, looking up, trying to see if I can see anything. And the car that the shots had come from was driving down the street. I could see the taillights headed down the street. So I look up, and the kid's on the ground. The kid in the white shirt, he's on the ground, and he not moving. And the knucklehead in me decides that I better go see if I can attend to this guy. So I walk over to him, and he is bleeding. He's got two gunshots in him. The third one missed, and he's gasping for air, and he's bleeding. Now, he was shot basically in the chest area. The bullets had come through the back, but they had exited his body, and he was bleeding from the front and the back. And so he's laying there on the ground. And immediately my instincts come into play, and I'm thinking, I've got to, see if I can attend to him. So I took my shirt off, and the chest wound, the top was bleeding the most. And I tried to apply pressure. I took my shirt off, and it was applying pressure to that wound. One of the people that was in the car was on the phone calling 911. Thank goodness, because I couldn't attend to this guy and, call the police very quickly. Well, in the part of town that we were at, the police were a heavy presence. So it wasn't very long before there was a patrol car on site. And then probably another 3 to 5 minutes, there was an ambulance crew that showed up. So as soon as the ambulance crew showed up, I handed him over to him. I stopped trying to administer him. Now, he was alive, and he was breathing, and he was, I guess, doing okay, but he was not dead. So I stepped away and let them take over, and they thanked me, and then the interrogation was on. So for the next hour, I was detained at the site there trying to explained to the police what is going on. They're running my, background to make sure I'm not some sort of criminal nut, and they're checking out the whole situation. So I had to give a written statement, oral statements, and make sure that I was not a suspect in this drive-by shooting. I'll tell you, I was freaked out. To be out just doing your job, and a software guy. When you're a software guy, you don't have somebody shooting, within 30 feet from you. You don't have gunshots ringing out. So this was not something I was accustomed to. It wasn't my world. So it was scary. It was harrowing, and I just wanted to go home. So finally, after about an hour of this stuff with the police, they get all my ID, the statements, all this stuff, I get to leave. And I drove home, and I was just shook. I was just absolutely shook because, I'm not used to gunshots. I'm not used to being shot at. I'm not used to this environment. So for the next couple days, I watched the news to see if this young man had died. Now, the incident was reported very briefly in the newspaper there. It was just a drive-by shooting, unsolved, yada yada. It was a very short story, but apparently the young man did not die. And I'll tell you this: it was a memory forever. You don't stop and see something like that in person. You see stuff like that in the movies, but to attend to somebody who's laying on the ground, gasping for air at first, trying to hang on to life, it's not a pretty scene. So anyway, that was one of my experiences out doing rideshare. I have ultimate respect for anybody